Alrighty, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Department of Toxic Substance Control Exide Technologies Advisory Group meeting. Our meeting this evening is scheduled from 5:30 to 7:30. All of our meeting materials are available in English and Spanish and are accessible at www.dtsc.ca.gov/Exide. My name is Madhya Jamal. I will be the facilitator for our Exide Technologies Advisory Group meeting this evening. I am a public participation specialist for the Exide project with the Department of Toxic Substances Control. You should now be able to see our PowerPoint presentation on your screen for tonight's meeting. Now, I'd like to go over our meeting guidelines with you. We want you to be aware that by participating in this meeting, you understand that this meeting is being recorded. You may be muted for background noise. The chat feature will be used for DTSC informational purposes only. Please pay attention to the chat to receive important information. If you do wish to ask questions or give comments, you may do so by using the Q&A feature.
I'm on a meeting. I'll be back.
We ask that you limit your comments to allow everyone the opportunity to participate during the meeting. This Exide Technology Advisory Group public meeting will focus on the residential cleanup and the Exide facility closure. However, if you have any other Exide questions, please call our hotline number. Our number is 844-225-3887. To support language and captions this evening, simultaneous Spanish audio interpretation is available for this meeting. Click the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen and select a language. It is important for everyone in this meeting to select a language, either English or Spanish, so your audio doesn't cross over. For Spanish-only audio by phone, please call 877-920-8432 and enter the code 741502#. Presentation slides are available in Spanish at dtsc.ca.gov/Exide. Automated closed captions have been turned on for this meeting. You can turn them off by clicking the CC icon at the bottom of your screen or moving the captions box. Please note that these captions are provided for convenience only and are not the official transcript of this meeting. This Exide Technologies Advisory Group Public Community Meeting is being presented to you by the California Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Toxic Substance Control, also known as DTSC. Our mission here at DTSC is to protect California's people, communities, and environment from toxic substances, to enhance economic vitality by restoring contaminated land, and to compel manufacturers to make safer consumer products. Now, I would like to welcome and introduce our Department of Toxic Substance Control Director, Dr. Meredith Williams. Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Medea. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Etag members. Looking forward to the discussion today. You always provide good insights and challenge us to continue to do better in our work to remediate the contaminated properties around Exide and the site itself. So I thank you for continuing to serve on this Etag and to attend our meetings and to being in communication with us. We have a number of changes today in terms of new faces and missing faces. Many of you have worked with Grant Pope for quite a long time, both in his capacity as a deputy secretary for Cali, PA, but more extensively as he served while he was in service to DTSC as a deputy director for the site mitigation and remediation program. I'm sorry to say that US EPA snatched up Grant, and they've decided to take advantage of his extensive expertise and skill set, and he has moved to US EPA. And so we are now in the process of working with the governor's office to identify a new deputy director. But rest assured, the team is keeping me abreast of everything. We have good coverage, good engagement on our executive team, and we will continue to make sure that the site and the remediation gets the attention that it needs and deserves. Despite Grant's departure, I must say I'm thrilled because we do have a new face with us today, and hopefully some of you already know her, and that is Ivana Cáceres. And Ivana has joined us as the new Deputy Director for our Office of Environmental Equity, and that's our public participation staff, our environmental justice staff, and our tribal affairs staff. And we couldn't be happier to have Ivana on board. She previously served as the director for community engagement, public engagement for the mayor of the city of Oakland. And so she comes with tremendous expertise. She can tell you a little bit more about herself. But again, very, very happy to have her on board and for her to continue to find new ways for us to work with you, to engage with communities, and to use the community input as we make our decisions, not just on the Exide project, but on all the work that we do. So with that, I will give Ivana a few minutes to introduce herself and make a few comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Williams. Thank you, staff. Hola, everyone. I really appreciate you having me at this meeting. I am just beginning my time here at DTSC and couldn't feel more honored to be a part of this team and working on our environmental justice goals here at DTSC. I look forward to the partnership that we will have and attending more of these meetings in the future. I went down to meet with several staff and was able to meet with Mahogany, Laura, and Dion and others, and feel very confident in our ability to continue working closely with communities. So very excited to continue working with you all, and thank you again for having me here.
Thank you, Ivana. And with that, I want us to get on to the topics. There's some very important topics we need to discuss today. So we may want to take a minute because some folks are having some challenges joining the meeting. I don't know. I'll leave that to Medea to decide. But next, I'll pass the baton to Mark Lopez so that he can make his opening remarks.
Thank you, Meredith. Yes, once the staff can get the right code, that would be appreciated so we could share it with folks who are trying to get in. And welcome, Ivana. Definitely looking forward to meeting you and working with you in the future. I think, the transitions in the department over the last year and a half have been pretty significant. And I think I start to worry. It starts to remind me of the old DTSC, where there was just a constant kind of flow in and out of the department by different people. And so I'm hoping you're here to stay for a while, Ivana, and that we're able to ideally get some community participation. And I don't know if that's possible, Meredith, or something that can be communicated with the governor's office, but community participation in some of the future hires, in particular for Grant's position, right? Because that is extremely important. I think there's a lot that can come out of some early engagement and relationship building for whoever comes into that position. I think in the past, when there's been transition on the community end, what we've experienced is a setback, right? It's kind of we're taking steps back, we're restarting, we're having to rehash old issues. And I think we haven't had to deal with that in the last couple of years in the department, and hoping that we don't have to return to that moving forward, right? So the earlier and more often that we're able to engage, I think the better the transition for the staff coming on, in ensuring that there isn't a gap, or there isn't a kind of, unintentional roadblock down the way. And I know when it comes to state positions, even just on a hiring, it takes a long time. And then, of course, if it's an appointment, it might be even longer. And so definitely understand that. And so hoping that folks in the department lean in to the relationships with all of us to ensure that we're not seeing some of those hiccups down the road. Thank you for everybody who has joined, those who will be joining once they have the correct info here. Always just appreciative of folks who actually make the time to participate in these meetings, to contribute to these meetings, to receive information, to distribute it to our communities, and to push back as well, right? I did want to share that East Yard is currently conducting a research project with our partners at USC and Occidental College, where we're sampling soil beyond the current Exide cleanup area, and also resampling some of the homes that already got cleaned up. I think these are concerns that we've had for some time, and that I've raised and others have raised in these meetings before, right? Of, are we doing the cleanup correctly? Is this the right approach, this patchwork approach? And then are we going far enough in the cleanup, right? And so this is definitely an invitation to all to reach out. I'll drop a link in for the USC website, and also for a recent East Yard post if you're interested in having your soil sampled by us. I think we're really trying to ensure that we don't get far down the line on this cleanup, and then there's a gap between finishing the 10,000 homes and then thinking about or trying to figure out how far does this actually go, right? And I think this is consistent with what we've seen all along the way, right? From when the department committed to cleaning up 2 homes, to cleaning up 50 homes, to cleaning up 200 homes, to cleaning up 10,000 homes, right? Is, the department really looks at what it has in front of it. But us as community, we need to look further than that and ensure that we can help guide the agency to do the full extent of cleanup needed. So I'll drop those links in the chat in a second.
Thank you, Mark. And I do want to say that we definitely hear you on the need for continuity, the need to maintain momentum. Our site mitigation and remediation program is our biggest program within the department, and it's critically important. And the governor, the governor's office, Cali, PA, the entire administration recognizes how important this position is, and recognizes that whoever fills the role needs to have a core understanding of the importance of community engagement, importance of the injustices, the environmental injustices that have been experienced, and recognize that they have to be part of DTSC continuing to do better and better and better. So there is a sense of urgency about filling the position, and I will pass on your question about whether or not there is an opportunity for early engagement from community members. So thank you for those comments. So Medea, I think it's back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Thank you, Ivana. Thank you, Mark, for your very important and insightful remarks. For those that are still trying to join on the chat, we did post the correct meeting ID. So if you do see people still trying to join, please go ahead and share the correct meeting ID. That would be great. Now, we will have our first 2 presentations. Our first 2 presentations will be on the Exide residential cleanup. We'll receive general Exide project updates by Dr. Mehdi Betahar, our Assistant Deputy Director with DTSC. And our second presentation will be a residential cleanup update presented by Stephen Harari, our Project Manager with DTSC. Dr. Mehdi Betahar.
Thank you, Mediha. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight. My name is Mehdi Betahar, and I manage the Exide project. I would like to provide a quick recap of our budget, history, and status for residential cleanup, and I will then present some of the main milestones achieved to date. Next slide, please. So prior to July 1st, 2021, the total authorized budget was $251.1 million. That budget was meant to help us sample all of the approximately 10,000 residential properties within a 1.7-mile radius around the former Exide facility. The second goal was to clean up 2,500 or up to 2,500 with the highest level properties with the highest level of lead in soil and the greatest potential for exposure. And the third objective was to develop a job training program, which is known as DTSC's Workforce for Environmental Restoration in Communities, commonly referred to as the WORK program. As a summary of the total authorized budget prior to the July 1st of 2021, as you can see, we have expended $247.9 million expended or encumbered in contracts. And we currently have a balance of about $3.2 million, and this balance is reserved to cover for some unforeseen work that needs to be performed on certain properties. Next slide, please. I have shared this slide with you, and I can tell you that not much has changed. As you can see, over 95% of the funds have been dedicated and have been used to address contaminated soil and restore the properties. The breakdown is as follows: 87% of the soil was used for cleanup and restoration, 8% for soil sampling, 4% for project quality assurance, communication, the work program that I just mentioned, and finally, IT supports. Next slide, please. In July 2nd, 2021, Governor Newsom approved legislation that directed $322.4 million for DTSC, specifically dedicated for the residential cleanup. Out of the $322.4, $31.4 million were used to complete cleanup of the 3,200 properties by December of 2021, a goal that we have achieved and I presented in front of you during the last meeting. $48.8 million were encumbered in a cleanup contract to ensure continuous cleanup until about July of 2022. That is a total of $80.2 million of used or encumbered funds to date. About $187 million are in process of being contracted for cleanup of remaining properties with concentration exceeding 200 parts. And that should leave us with a balance of about $55.2 million. Next slide, please. For the parkways, similar to the previous slide or the one before it, there was no change. DTSC has expended $2.9 million in contract for sampling and conducting risk assessment. This includes approximately $70,000 on DTSC resources. The balance of $3.6 million, as reported during the last meeting, was reverted to general fund to support statewide COVID activities on June 30th, 2020. DTSC has secured fund from the LEBRIC, the Lead Acid Battery Cleanup Funds, to finalize documents through the public process. Next slide, please. So let's move on very quickly to the general updates. And I have tried to include some of the points or some of the questions that were raised during the last Etag public meeting. Next slide, please. I'll start with the workers' health and safety. We have already submitted all the documents requested by Dr. Rene, one of the Etag members, and we have also reached out to Dr. Sapti to schedule a meeting and discuss how best we can collectively identify any needed improvements with regards to workers' health and safety. I am seeing this as a beginning. I think I've said it the last time. Our hope is to work with Dr. Sapti and establish multiple meetings if needed. Working session, I would call them, for the benefit of the workers. Next slide, please. For the litigation topic, I have maybe two information. The first one is I have left the slide, and this is important that everyone who has been looking for information regarding national-led industry legal action against selected owners, you have the website as a best resource, and I do encourage all interested parties to visit our website. The second topic I wanted to share with you today that we have, or at least there is a start of a trial, and that trial is to determine the scope of the compensable cleanup area. The remaining issues to be litigated will be scheduled for future trial dates, but it was important for me to share with you at least that there is a trial that has already started on Exide. And again, please visit our website. We are trying to keep that link that's provided on this web page updated very regularly, and you will find a lot of answers to your questions. Next slide, please. Cleanup approach. During the last meeting, I clearly stated that we want to try this approach, not that we have this approach of cleaning street by street and block by block. Now that we have a larger list of properties that have a concentration between 200 parts per million and 300 parts per million. So the street by street has already started in the City of Commerce. We do encourage participation from owners on that street. It is important that we can complete as many properties on the street that we already start. We are seeing some people encouraged. It feels like when they see their neighbors being cleaned up, they call and want to participate, and that is a very good thing. We are taking into account the feedback we receive from the community, namely and most importantly, the issues of parking. And of course, we are evaluating this approach. We're looking at what works and what doesn't. And we will complete our evaluation by end of June 2022. Next slide, please. You have probably, if you had a chance to visit our website, you can see that we made an announcement and we shared it in public. It doesn't hurt to add it here because this is something that's, at least for me personally, is devastating. We have heard or we received report of people claiming to be from DTSC or one of our contractors in the Exide cleanup area, and they're able to expedite cleanup in exchange for money. I want to emphasize here that DTSC's cleanup services are provided free of cost. No one from the state will ever ask residents to pay to receive this service or to be moved higher on a priority list. If someone approaches you saying that they're from DTSC or one of our contractors, you have the right to ask for a photo identification. You can also call our hotline, and the number is provided here, 844-225-3887. Next slide, please. Finally, let's talk a little bit about what was achieved to date and where are we with the cleanup. Next slide, please. So as of April 22nd, we have completed 3,617 residential properties. All schools, parks, daycares have been cleaned up, and we are communicating with the licensing agency to verify whether there is a new school or daycare that shows up on their list. And I'm happy to tell you that we haven't seen any to date. We have also secured 1,525 access agreements. That is from the list of 200 parts per million that was released recently. Additionally, we have put a great level of effort to contact people who were reluctant to participate in the cleanup. And out of a list of about 1,500 owners that refused to participate, we have convinced 313 owners, and we now have 313 access agreements. And initial sampling is hopefully going to start in about a month or two once the contract is ready. A quick note here, I'll take a moment to thank all the contractors who are helping with this effort. This is a success, at least this part, a success story that we can share with all. Next slide, please. Lastly, we're looking at the PLA, the Project Labor Agreement, and the compliance. You can see here in this chart the target versus the actual. This slide is slightly updated, slightly old, sorry. The most recent number of this week are showing a little bit of a dip. We are showing here that we're meeting all the targets and exceeding them. I would say except for the last one, we're close to 48%, and the reason being that some members, some new environmental workers have gone on vacation, or some of them were reported sick, and that actually lowered the numbers slightly. Next slide, please. And as always, I would like to thank all the residents that signed up for the cleanup and welcome us in their homes. Many thanks also go to all the field workers. Hopefully some of you guys are present today. We do recognize the fact that you are day in, day after day, managing these sites and this heavy work. And I wanted to say thank you so much. I will also take a moment here to recognize Mr. Michael Lecides, one of our contractors, field worker who lives in the East LA. He lives within the PIA. Michael is recovering from a recent injury, and I wanted to wish him a quick recovery and convey our support to his family and loved ones. And now, without any delay, I would like to pass it on to my colleague, Stephen Harry, who is the project manager for the residential cleanup.
Thank you, Dr. Bedahar. Good evening. My name is Stephen Hariri. I'm the new project manager for the Exide Residential Cleanup Project. The following slides present a brief update on the current status of the residential cleanup. Next slide, please. As a recap, this map presents the preliminary investigation area where our cleanup efforts are active. The preliminary investigation area includes the 7 jurisdictions outlined. The areas include the cities of Commerce, Los Angeles, Maywood, Bell, Huntington Park, and Vernon, and an unincorporated area in the county of Los Angeles. Next slide, please. This slide presents the 5-step process for the cleanup. It begins with a notification letter to the property owner that their property qualifies for cleanup. Thereafter, the planning phase of the cleanup involves communicating directly with the property owner at least twice before the actual cleanup starts. That includes an initial and pre-construction meeting. Subsequently, the actual physical cleanup efforts commence. Finally, after the cleanup is complete, all documentation related to the cleanup is compiled into a report referred to as the letter of completion. Next slide, please. The next slides provide a brief update on the residential cleanup currently underway. Our previous quarter's efforts were focused on 2 large apartment complexes named the Wyvernwood Gardens and Estrada Courts, respectively. Most of the efforts at the apartment complexes are complete, and the focus now is on individual residences. Next slide, please. The Wyvernwood Garden Apartments is an approximately 63-acre site located south of the Interstate 5, Interstate 10, and U.S. Route 60 interchange. The site consists of 6 very large parcels identified here as blocks 1 through 6. These parcels include a total of 339 decision units that qualified for cleanup. These decision units consist mostly of land immediately surrounding individual buildings, but also include large grassy areas, some fenced-in yards, and shared community areas. Pre-confirmation sampling was completed on July 30th, 2021. Actual cleanup work began on August 17th, 2021. As of February 11th, 2022, all 339 decision units have been cleaned up. Next slide, please. The Estrada Courts apartment complex is comprised of 2 parcels identified here as blocks 1 and 2, totaling approximately 21 acres, located just east of the Wyverwood Gardens apartment complex. Our initial sampling identified 69 decision units within Estrada courts that qualified for cleanup. These decision units consisted of land immediately surrounding individual apartment buildings, but also include common areas and areas surrounding an on-site school and a daycare center. Pre-construction confirmation sampling was completed on August 13th, 2021. Actual cleanup work began on October 5th, 2021. As of February 28th, 2022, all 69 decision units have been cleaned up. Next slide, please. This slide presents the residential cleanup progress. The preliminary investigation area includes approximately 10,000 sensitive land use parcels. These parcels are comprised of single and multifamily residential properties, schools, parks, daycares, and childcare facilities. In cases such as Wyverwood Gardens and Estrada Court apartment complexes, parcels have been subdivided into individual decision units. As of April 22nd, 2022, approximately 3,617 parcels have been cleaned up. 9,092 parcels or decision units have been sampled, and just over 1,200 parcels in the preliminary investigation area have not been sampled. DTSC typically reaches out to a property owner about 7 times. DTSC honors the request of a property owner previously reluctant to participate in the program for sampling and cleanup. Next slide, please. This graph shows the progress of our cleanup efforts from May 2018 through April 2022 of this year. The solid green line shows our steady progress to date, the number of properties cleaned up. And the yellow dotted line shows our projected number of parcels to be cleaned up. We are on track in accordance with our schedule. DTSC achieved its goal of cleaning up 3,200 properties before December 31st, 2021. The meeting of this goal is a major accomplishment for the community and DTSC's partners. In May and June 2020, cleanup was slowed due to COVID-19 and subsequently due to excessive smoke in the valley from nearby wildfires. The work was purposely slowed down out of concerns for worker health. Next slide, please. This table presents our cleanup efforts for the schools, parks, and daycares in the preliminary investigation area. A total of 31 schools, 16 parks, and 79 daycares have been identified in the preliminary investigation area. Next slide, please. We are also actively building a backlog of properties for cleanup so that the work will continue into 2022 and beyond. We're committed to addressing contaminated soils for those residential properties that qualify for cleanup. Recently, we have sent notifications to 2,352 property owners with lead concentrations over 200 parts per million to notify them that their properties qualify for cleanup. As a result, we have received 1,525 access agreements. Also, our desire is to sample all the properties in the preliminary investigation area. As of April 22nd, 2022, we have been able to secure 313 access agreements. Next slide, please. If you would like more information, please contact our public participation specialist, Ms. Dion Falk, or myself at the addresses and phone numbers shown. Additional information on the residential cleanup project is available on our website at dtsc.ca.gov. Thank you, And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Meredith, and thank you, Stephen Harari, for your presentations. Now I will go ahead and move on to our Q&A period. At this time, we would like to invite our Exide Technologies Advisory Group members, also known as Etag members, to ask questions and make comments. Then we will invite the public members to ask questions and make comments. There are 4 ways to make a comment here today. If you are participating on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. You will be invited to unmute your audio when it's your turn. If you have dialed into the Zoom audio, you can press *9 to join the phone queue. I will say the last 3 digits of your phone number when it's your turn. You can then press *6 to unmute your line. If you would like me to read your question, click the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen and type in your question. Please note, the chat feature continues to be enabled for DTSC informational purposes only, but you can use the Q&A for any questions or comments. Lastly, if you have called into our Spanish language line, our Spanish interpreter will ask your questions for you. I will now start taking Etag members' questions and comments. First, I'll go to the hand raise feature.
Medea, I believe we have a Etag member, Rene Accepti.
Alrighty, I do see your hand. Rania, go ahead.
Thank you, Medea and Dion. So thank you for the presentations. The updates are much appreciated. I have 2 comments. The first one is really about the format of this meeting. Would be, the fact that our cameras are not on, that we cannot see our fellow Etag members, and that we can only speak to each other. Actually, we can only speak, there's just a platform here that is hindering communication between Etag members. There's as much value in us asking you questions and having you answer as much as there's value for the Etag members to speak with each other. We have deviated from this over time. I know COVID has prompted some of these changes, but I think we're all very comfortable with technology now and we can get more creative with this. And so I am asking, and I've asked this before, and this time I'm asking it more formally, that this platform for Etag members to communicate with each other and have that ability be facilitated by DTSC at meetings like this or another platform. And this is not the first time I place this request. It's becoming a hindrance to public participation and the role of the Etag in the processes of the cleanup and DTSC. It's been repeated very often, and this comment has been ignored repeatedly. So that's my first point, and I will wait for your answers and replies to this and other Etag members' participation to the question I just asked. I would like to know if other people feel the same, or am I the only one? I do have another comment later about some other things. So I'll be quiet here. I'd like to hear from my fellow Etag members.
Thank you, Rania, for your comment and feedback. Dion, would you like to address that? I can go ahead move on if you would like to address that.
Hi, Rania. First of all, we're very sorry that you are feeling this way. I did see your comments in the Q&A, and what we're doing is trying to identify the Etag members first to get their comments and questions. And so we want to hear from all of our Etag members. If you can please just go ahead and identify yourself, raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you right now before we get to our public members. Okay, we see Peter Reyes. We're going to go ahead and allow you to talk. Peter, you can go ahead and unmute. Hi, great to hear from you.
Thank you. I think what Dr. Rania is saying is that in the past, we've had access to, because even in the last meeting, we didn't have to raise our hand. We just had the mic readily available. And I think this creates more chaos because then I raise my hand, she raises her hand. We don't know who's next.
Right.
Since it is a Etag meeting. So I think that's where the confusion is. And I think she was expecting an answer before we moved on. I'm not sure if somebody was going to address why we moved away from that.
Well, we're dealing with COVID, and so a lot of things change. So we're hoping for a little bit of grace as we have had to, switch gears and try and continue to still put these meetings on, Peter. But what we'll do is we're listening to you. The next Etag meeting will definitely address this so that Etag members will be able to communicate with each other. So we will definitely address that concern that you have. We'll regroup after this. But right now for this meeting, we do want to hear from you. So if you have any other items, concerns, please let us know. And we'll go back to the table and try and make sure that we get everything worked out as we continue to adjust. So just bear with us, but we hear you. Right.
Okay. I just didn't want to cut her off because I think she said I'll wait see if anybody feels the same way. So I was just trying to say that I did feel the same way. But I did think she said she had a second question, or should I ask my question?
You know what? Go ahead and ask your question. And what I'm going to do is ask Rene. Rene, can you raise your hand again? And then we'll get to you after Peter asks his question, okay? So go ahead, Peter, and we'll look for Rene's hand.
Yeah, I was just calling. I just wanted to see if there was any updates regarding the bidding process and if there's been an extension on this old contract with the NEC to continue until the new contractor comes in.
Yes, great. Thank you. I'm going to ask Mehdi to come forward and see if he can address some of those concerns for you. Thank you, Peter. Mehdi?
Yeah. Thank you, Dion. The simple answer is yes, there are some news. As I shared with you in the past, we want to make sure that this new contract get publicly solicited. And we have for the first time published it online. If you go online, you're going to have the latest update. Now we have a slight delay in our schedule. The RFP, which is a request for proposal, may be released here in a few weeks. Currently, it's undergoing legal review, so we're really at the latest steps. As far as how work continues, we had a meeting. You and I had a meeting recently, and I shared with you that it was important for us to keep the work going no matter what. And so we want to avoid any disruption or any stop because we want the workers currently employed to keep their jobs. And so we have extended NEC contracts for the needed duration until we have finished the solicitation and selected a contractor on board. This is where we are at this point. The full schedule is publicly available. It's online. Mind you, we have a meeting tomorrow and we should be able to finalize the dates. But we have that little delay and we're working on it.
Thank you so much, Mehdi. And I see Rene. So Rene, I am going to go ahead and allow you to unmute. Can you go ahead and unmute and ask your next question? And I did want to let you know that like I said to Peter, we will definitely take into consideration your concerns, and then at the next Etag meeting, we will modify what we're doing because we want you all to feel like you are at the table and you are able to communicate. So we'll take that back, Rene. We appreciate that.
All right, thank you. And so my next comment is about what Mehdi referred to in his presentation, in that I did place a public PRA request for some measurements, air monitoring, or any other lead air sampling or blood lead monitoring that has been done. And I wanted to see what that looked like. And I have DTSC has sent me quite a bit of records. So I do have a few questions about that. I am receiving all sorts of PDFs, and they seem to be originating from the contractors. And when I have asked a few questions about it, it was made clear to me that they're coming directly from the contractors. Am I correct?
That is correct.
And so my next question to you is, who at DTSC is looking at these records and tracking them over time?
We have two groups at DTSC. Mainly, I would say field operations. And I think you have had a chance to meet Jeff and talk to him. So Jeff is overseeing that field operation, and he's working closely with anything that relates to the field. His team is looking at that record. He's looking at that record. He's coordinating with the contractor, making sure that the information we have is accurate.
So Jeff is checking that the records are being gathered or that they're being done, or is he inspecting, or himself or other people on your team inspecting the records on a regular basis, seeing the data as it comes, the patterns, the trends, all of that? Is that happening at DTSC?
It is. And he's checking the air monitors, for instance, every single day to ensure that we're in compliance. So it's not a matter of just getting the record. Yes, the record, we have to ask for it. And as you said yourself, it's a huge record that we have provided. But there is that level of effort every single day to verify that the information is correct. Are we in compliance? Are we exceeding, etc.? So that's what Jeff's unit does every day.
You mentioned another team. Who would be the other team?
So the other team is the health. When it comes to health and safety of the workers, we have our own health and safety expert, and we work with them closely. So when there's any issue on that, and Jeff would coordinate with them directly.
Okay, so this takes me to the following. The way the records were sent to me makes me think no one at DTSC is actually looking at the trends over time and seeing where things are moving. There might be spot checks, but really it's trends that say a lot. And I'm noticing that those records weren't sent to me. And so, I appreciate all the PDFs that have been sent. It's going to take a lot of effort and the hiring of associates on my team to be able to go through the data, log it into spreadsheets, and see patterns and identify issues. So I'm being asked basically to put resources and money into this, when apparently you seem to be doing that already at DTSC, and I don't need to invest my resources into it. And so I would like to work with your team. This is going to have to be a joint effort. Just as you're looking at your trends and records, I'm assuming you have spreadsheets that track all of this, that's being logged in, things like that. If that's not being done, we're going to do it together. And if that's already done, then that is what I'd like to see. And so this is it's not going to be me presenting at any next meeting. It's me beginning to work with DTSC and your team on this data to see what you've been doing with it, how you've been tracking it, what patterns have you identified that put your minds to rest every day, because clearly you're comfortable with everything. And that's who I need to speak with to move this project forward. I will not invest my own resources and hire people to help me with this project before I know what you're doing. And we're going to do this together. This is a process that definitely involves you. And if it doesn't, then, we need to find out. This Etag needs to know.
Thank you, Dr. Sapti. We have sent you an email asking you when you are available, and that offer is on the table. Like I said at the very beginning of this process, and I share exactly what you're saying. This is not a matter of us sending you data and that's it. We wanted to give you a chance to review the data, and we are very, very much open to have a start of a joint working relationship, looking at the data together, see what can improve, because it benefits everybody. It benefits the worker first. So that offer is on the table. When you're ready and you want to have the meeting, the first meeting, the first of a series of working sessions, I would call them, please let us know.
Okay. And I have let you know that I've changed my email address a few times, and I think the emails are going to the wrong place, and it's not being noted. I don't know how many times I need to repeat it. My address now is a UCLA address, and you must have been sending communication to the wrong email. And also this meeting, I found out about it accidentally again, because I've changed email addresses and I've let you know. So we do have a little bit of a communication. I do want to say that when we do begin to have these meetings, at some point, either earlier or later into the process or soon after we start, I would like to have worker representation. It's their data more than anybody else's. And I'd like that they be part of the knowing what's being collected and how it's being read and what it means, because they're with it every day. This is their data, nobody else's really. Okay.
Thank you so much, Rene. I really appreciate your comments. And I want to make sure that we do have your correct email address. I'm happy to give you mine, and then I can make sure that we have yours, and then I can share it with our DTSC team. So that
if I put it in the chat box, would that be private to the DTSC team?
That's a good question. No. No. Okay. How about I'm happy to give my email address, Rene, if you don't mind writing it down, and then just shoot me an email, and then what we'll do is I'll make sure that the team has your correct email address. And it's Dione, DIONNE, period, Falk, FAULK, at dtsc.ca.gov.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I do want to tell you, I've been in this job for 3 months and I have not been receiving communications because I've been logged off the other emails, and I've informed you and doesn't seem to be working.
No, we'll get it together after this. So just if you can shoot me an email, I'll make sure we all have your updated email address. Thank you, Rene. We appreciate the input. We really do.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yes.
Thank you, Dion. And thank you, Rania, Dr. Septi, for your constructive question and offer to collaboratively work with DTSC. I'm going to go ahead and give it off to Mark. I do see his hand raised. Mark Lopez.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Rania. I do want to make sure to recognize that you really have been one of the most consistent Etag members for years. And so any types of communications issues, or information sharing issues really at this point should not be something that takes time to be resolved. That should be something, because you've been so consistent, that it doesn't make sense for this to be ongoing issues. So definitely count on me for any support you need to make sure to help get to any issues that come up. But I do want to make sure to note this again, given some of the comments I made earlier, right? When we have folks who are consistently involved for such a long time, it can be very frustrating when we're facing issues that some of it might be because of transitions that have happened, right? And so, Rania, I think, takes a very compassionate approach. Because she could really be tripping on y'all, and she's not. And so I do want to make sure to recognize that.
Thank you, Mark, for that. I'm going to go ahead and move on to our Zoom phone line. So I'll go on to our first phone line. Again, to unmute yourself, once I choose you, please press *6 to unmute your line. So I'm going to go ahead and ask 096 to go ahead and ask their question and comment.
Hi, yeah, my name is Rogelio Alvarez III. I am a heavy machine operator for Power One. I just had a couple of comments, and I just want to say thank you to the company Power One for not only just caring about the employees, but caring about the community in whole. I also live in the community, so seeing the work that we do, make the kids happy and the community happy, make me feel good about my job and the work that we're doing. That's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I'm going to go ahead and go on to our next line. So this line is 187. Again, this line is 187. You can go ahead and ask your question or comment. Looks like we can't hear you, but when I go on to our public members, I'll go ahead. You can go ahead and raise your hand again, and I'll go ahead and pick on you again. Now, I would like to move on to our Spanish bridge audio. Further questions in the Spanish bridge line? Madeline, are there any questions on the Spanish line?
No questions in the Spanish line, Medea.
All righty. Thank you, Teresa, for that. Now I would like to invite our public members for questions and comments. Again, I'll go ahead and read the instructions for the 4 ways that we have here today to make questions and comments. If you're on the Zoom, you can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, type in the question. If you can also use the raise hand feature, and I will go ahead and mute your line when it's your turn. If you have called in, press *9 to be on the phone queue, and when it's your turn, press *6 and to unmute your line. So I will go ahead and start taking questions and comments from our public members. First, I'll go on to see who has the raised hand feature. So I see Augustine. You can go ahead and ask your question or comment.
Hi, everyone. I've been involved for the project since, 2011, 2012. And we've seen the progress on this project going forward, and we've done a lot of good things. And I just want to keep saying that we see the progress going. Yes, there's been hiccups and issues, but everything's being worked on. And I've seen a big positive impact on the community and what has seen before and what it is now. So just wanted to give a shout out to everyone working on the project and the good job they're doing. That is all.
Thank you, Augustine, for that. Much appreciated. I'm now going to move on to Chris Hanan. You may go ahead and ask your question or comment. Chris?
Hello, this is Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, this is Chris Hannon from the Los Angeles Orange County's Building Construction Trades Council. I just wanted to join this evening and talk about the benefits of having the remediation work done underneath the project labor agreement so that workers have representation on the job. Workers get fair wages with quality benefits, access to great health care, and secure retirement. After the cleanup is complete, these careers will continue to go on within the laborers union, within the operating engineers, employees that are working and members that are working on these projects now, residents that come into the trades through, whether it be through the work program or through the local unions directly, will continue to have employment opportunities throughout the region. I can tell you the building trades is growing. We have a lot of opportunities. I'm on the line if anybody wants to ask any direct questions, but wanted to reiterate that the opportunities to work after this is complete, the benefits will go long after the cleanup is complete. And there's work all across the region, and not just work, but quality work, quality careers with some of the best benefits in the industry. Both LIUNA Local 300 and Operating Engineers Local 12, first-class operations, and that's where the largest majority of the work is done. Thank you very much for having this forum, and happy to stay on to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris, for sharing that information. We would love that if you can share your email or any form of contact on the Q&A feature so people can reach out to you to collaboratively work with you. Thank you for that information.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Chris. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Paula.
Hello?
Yes. Hello, Paula, we can hear you.
Hi, I just want to say that my mom's house was done in Commerce and by SF&S. And I just want to say they did a really great job, and the workers worked very hard, and we just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. We have a great time working with our residents and our community members, so it's really great to hear that. Thank you, Paula.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our Zoom phone line again. I will go onto that number that wasn't able to speak again. So it's 187. That is your last 3 digits. To unmute your line, please press *6. Alrighty, I do not hear anything, so I'm going to move on to Juan Flores. I do see that hand was raised for a while, so Juan Flores, you may go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Juan Flores, and I'm a worker. I work with the company American Integrated Services. And first of all, I'd like to thank DTSC for, speaking about Michael Aceves and caring about his family. He's a really good worker, and we're all like, me, I'm gonna speak for myself, but first of all, I want to say thank you for bringing Michael up and giving some love to his family. That's really nice of you guys. I'm with the work program, and I represent a lot of the guys that are from the work program. We are from the neighborhood. We're like guys that really never had a chance or an opportunity. So we're so grateful. We're so thankful for this opportunity to have a good job, to have a career. And this changed our whole life. If it wasn't for this opportunity, we wouldn't be living how we live today. Like I was able to save some money, even get a house. I was living in a little place, and this program gave me the opportunity to help my family out so much. So first of all, I like to thank like Andres Martinez, AIS, DTSC. Very thankful. And I'm speaking about from a lot of my co-workers. We're very thankful for this opportunity that you guys have given us. Another thing I'd like to mention is when we have a lot of love for the community, since we're from the community. When we do our work, I just want the people, the homeowners, or anyone that's probably worried about anything, but I just want to let you know that when we do the work, we do it with a lot of love. We love our people, and it's so nice that we could finally do good for our community. Like me, before I wasn't that productive in my community. Today, I feel so good. I get paid twice. I get paid by helping out the environment, the community, the next generation, the elders, and then also I get a good paycheck. I'm so blessed for this opportunity that I have. And also, I just want to let you know that it feels so good to be working with the best. I see a lot of different companies that with these competitors, and I'm new to this industry. but I see a lot of competitors, and I just see the difference from American Integrated Services, how professional they are, how serious they are about keeping the community safe, how keeping the workers safe. They never lack on helping us out. If we're ever worried about anything, they're there for us. And I just want to let you guys know that whenever we're working in the neighborhood, we're doing it with a lot of love. So we're really careful with the homeowner's home. We're really careful about the dust. We respect the dust, the contamination. And pretty much I just want to say I'm really thankful for all you guys giving us this opportunity, and to know that we're doing our best to keep doing what we're doing. And we're just going to keep doing the best. So that's sorry for talking so much. It's been I've been wanting to do this for a while, to talk to you guys and tell you how we feel as the workers and the people from the neighborhood. Thanks again for giving us an opportunity and a chance. That's it. I'm out.
Thank you, Juan. That was really great to hear. You don't have to apologize. That, our mission here at DTSC is to be community focused. So hearing your feedback, not only does it help us know what we're doing right, it helps us know where we can help, how we can improve, and what is actually fruitful in the community. So that was really good to hear, Juan. I'm going to go ahead and move on to our Spanish bridge line. Teresa or Madeline, do we have any questions on the Spanish line? Looks like we don't have any questions. Do we, Teresa?
Yes, no questions.
No questions. Okay. Alrighty. Now I would like to move on to our Exide closer facility presentations. After those presentations, we will have another Q&A session. I will go ahead and choose you then.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment real quick before we transition. I just wanted to thank Juan for sharing everything he said, and others who have called in to share. I think that's the experience of a lot of folks, and that's the importance, right, of getting a project labor agreement, of getting local hire in particular, right, to make sure that those harmed by Exide, those harmed from the previous activity of DTSC are getting some of the benefits of this cleanup, right? That's very intentional. And I also want to make sure that folks know that wasn't gifted. There wasn't a benevolent agency that said, this is all for you, It was something that was brought up by community members. It was something that was pushed by community members, right? And so it's important to know that and hope that folks understand that as part of the history of this whole Exide issue, and that we use that as inspiration to continue to push, right? And so again, I really appreciate the comments talking about the kind of benefits and positive experiences people have. And I've noticed a trend of people calling in with that in somewhat organized fashion. And so I do want to make sure that doesn't serve to undermine the very legitimate critiques that people have had, including workers, including community members, about issues with the cleanup, about issues with contractors, current contractors, and previous contractors as well. I don't think there's ever been a perfect contractor, right? And I think if we get into the mindset of that even being possible, that's where we start to have a blind eye to some of the issues happening, right? And so, we want everything to go perfect, but we understand that issues come up, and we want to make sure that we address them as they come up in as productive ways as possible, right? So I do want to make sure to note that all of that is welcome, right? The good and the bad, and that we're always working to strive to correct any issues and move forward together, right? I think no one is gonna spend their time on this project to try to undermine any of it, right? And so I hope that everybody looks at each other in a friendly light of we're all trying to do our best here to make sure our communities get cleaned up.
Thank you, Mark. That was beautifully said. I did like the remark. This project cleanup did come into existence because the community advocated. I do see Dr. Williams, your hand raised.
Yeah, I just also wanted to thank Mark, and also thank all of the workers who spoke about their experiences, and just recognize that the work that you have done has actually inspired other parts of government to look for opportunities to make sure that people who are most impacted are getting opportunity as we try to address the environmental problems we have. I was in a budget hearing today and heard a lot of discussion about climate impacts, and the worker, seeing those initiatives integrate opportunities for people who are impacted to contribute to how we respond to climate change, contribute to and get income, get stable income and good jobs. That's something that I'm seeing more and more throughout government. And I really would have to say, if the work that you weren't doing wasn't so excellent and so widely recognized, I wonder if it would be getting the traction that it is throughout different parts of government. So I'm especially appreciative for the hard work that you're doing and the excellent work. And again, I will echo Mark's comment that when there are problems, we need to know about those too. And past times when workers have come and raised issues has really helped us strengthen the program and do some additional training and try to be responsive to your needs. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Before we move to the next presentation, I'm going to go ahead and take a question from the Q&A. So it's from Ivana Martinez Watson. It looks like she's from the Los Angeles chapter. I can't read the whole thing, but her question is, are there any future plans to clean up the areas immediately adjacent to the PIA and perhaps further out? Mehdi, would you like to address that?
Thank you, Medea. And thank you for the question. We have shared with all of you in the past that we have sampled beyond the current 1.7 miles in the past. And based on that sampling, the 1.7 mile is where we landed. So currently we are budgeted to clean, and we are making the commitment to clean all properties that qualify with the budget we currently have and hopefully would have in the future within that 1.7 mile.
Thank you, Mehdi, for addressing that. Alrighty, now I would like to go on to our Exide closure facility presentations. If we can please go to the next slide, please, that would be great. Alrighty, so our Exide closure facility presentations will be by our presenters, Amanda Cruz, the project manager at United States Environmental Protection Agency, known as US EPA, followed by Roberto Puga at Rene Environmental Response Trust, VERT, then followed by Rene Bermudez and Jack Chang from South Coast AQMD. Amanda Cruz, you may go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I am Amanda Cruz, and I have been talking to you for many months, a year and a half now almost, on behalf of the US EPA. So thank you for being here tonight. Next slide. We are happy to report that at the end of April, the Trust finished the deconstruction and decontamination work that they had started in November 2020. You can see the picture on the left is when the Trust began the work, where they resumed work on segment 2 on the building. And then the photo on the right shows the segment building 2 deconstructed, as well as segment 3, the building in the center, is also deconstructed. And then the ground has been paved. Now, this is an amazing amount of work to have been completed in such a short period of time when you take into account the careful efforts that were undertaken for the deconstruction. These considerations included the careful, precise deconstruction that was done within the full enclosure unit with negative pressure, the windscreens and water misters that were used when taking down the full enclosure unit, the decontamination efforts all along the way. These are just a few of the many things that the Trust and the contractor AIS did for this facility. We are very proud of these achievements. Next slide, please. This image may look familiar to you. It lays out the work that the trust was planning to do. As you can see, we have completed the work that the trust set out to do. With the funding that DTSC has received, they will continue the closure plan implementation at the facility. At this point, the trust will be the lead as the property owner, which includes paying property taxes, paying permit fees, and any tasks necessary as the property owner. And Roberto will speak more about that and the trust accomplishments and their future roles. It's important to know that the facility has always had the continuation of site controls, either by the trust or by the DTSC at all times. Next slide. During the trust work, EPA maintained a website with updates every Tuesday. There will not be further weekly, they just posted that website for us, thank you. There will not be any further weekly updates since the trust deconstruction and decontamination work has concluded. However, we will post any future budget updates or important information as property owner. All of the previous posts, presentations, documents will be available on our website. You can also find the transition letter and the remaining trust approved budget on our website. The address is shown on our slide, and they were kind enough to put it in the chat. As DTSC will take a more active role in the continuation of the closure plan, I will be transitioning off of the project. And my colleague, Sarah Ziff, who's very experienced with long-term project management and project manager, she will be taking over on behalf of the EPA. It has been an honor to serve this community and to do my best as I was possibly able to help. And I look forward to seeing all the great things that continue to happen with this future transition. Sarah, can you please introduce yourself to the community?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Amanda, for that nice introduction. It's a pleasure to meet everybody this evening. So I'm Sarah Ziff with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. I have been with the EPA for 13 years, and I am an environmental engineer with the EPA. And I have had the pleasure of working in our current office on the cleanup of contaminated sites for 8 years. And, I'm really looking forward to helping DTSC and supporting this project moving forward and to working with the community. So I really appreciate everyone's support stepping into this role. And now I would like to pass the mic to Roberto Puga of the Trust, who is going to give a project status report. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Sarah, for that nice introduction. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for participating in this Etag meeting this evening. My name is Roberto Puga, and I represent the Vernon Environmental Response Trust, or VERT. This evening, I'm going to summarize for you the cleanup progress that we made over the last several months at the former Exide facility in Vernon, California. Next slide, please. So we will go through the work progress at the site. I'm very glad to be able to say that the VERT scope of work has been completed. And so we'll walk you through with a series of aerial photographs to show that progress, and also some interior shots of the FEU so you can see before and after of our activities. We'll also review our ambient air monitoring results, which have been very good over the last few months. And lastly, I will summarize the future work that the VERT will be involved with. Next slide, please. So as I said, I'm going to show you a progression of site photos that lay out the work progress at the facility since the VERT took over the facility at the end of October 2020. In this photograph, you'll see an FEU, and that stands for Full Enclosure Unit, around what was termed Segment 2, which was the lead smelter building. And this photograph illustrates the condition of the facility when the VERT took over the decontamination and deconstruction of the site industrial buildings. Next slide, please. So as I said, segment 2 consisted of the lead smelter building. Within this building were blast furnaces and related equipment. This photograph shows what the building, the lead smelter building looked like when we took over. You can see all of the heavy industrial machinery laid out, and it was quite a task for our contractor to go in there, decontaminate all of these surfaces, and then carefully deconstruct all of this and separate waste from recyclable material. The waste that were collected were appropriately disposed of, and the recyclables were sent to appropriate facilities. Next slide, please. And this photograph shows you the interior of the segment 2 FEU after the lead smelter building had been completely decontaminated and deconstructed. You can see it is completely gone. And you can see that the floor has been paved with asphalt as a protective measure. And this followed the procedure that was done after segment 1 was decontaminated and deconstructed by Exide Corporation before they declared bankruptcy and left the site. Next slide, please. Towards the end of last year, we were left with only segment 3 to complete. The segment 3 FEU, which you see in this photograph, housed the Baghouse Building. The Baghouse Building contained the air filtration equipment for the facility. So this is where the air, the process air in the industrial process that Exide was doing was collected, had the dust filtered out, and then eventually was released through air stacks. Next slide, please. So in this photograph, you see the interior of the Baghouse Building. As I said, the Baghouse equipment consisted of vacuums, so machineries to create a vacuum, air filters to scrub that air of entrained solids, and then stacks for the filtered air to be released back out into the atmosphere. Next slide, please. And here you see a picture of the interior segment 3 FEU after the completion of the decontamination and deconstruction of the Baghouse Building. And as you can see, the floor was paved similarly to what we did in segment 2. Next slide, please. And this photograph was taken just a few weeks ago. And as you can see, all of the major industrial buildings and processes at the site. So that included the lead receiving building, which was termed segment 1. That was completed by Exide before they left. And then the smelter, the lead smelter building, and the Baghouse Building, which were segments 2 and 3, and those were completed by the VERT. Next slide, please. This table is a summary of the waste disposed and decontaminated materials recycled. So at a total, about 1,500 tons of waste were removed from the site. About 1,700 tons of decontaminated materials were recycled. So for segment 2, because we took over for what Exide had been doing, the totals, were not very big because Exide had done most of the work in removing waste and recyclables. But in segment 3, you see that we took out 885 tons of waste and 1,269 tons of recycled metals. In other facility areas, namely areas that stored electrical batteries, we took out about 106 tons of waste and about 359 tons of mostly batteries that were sent for recycling. And then during all this time, we were continually running a wastewater treatment plant, and we have disposed about 450 tons of sludge from the wastewater treatment plant. Next slide, please. And, throughout the work we've been doing at the site, we have been very diligent in staying in compliance with our air permit. That permit required us to do things in a certain way, and that included having the FEUs and also monitoring a 5-station monitoring network around the site to make sure that we were in compliance with our air standards. Last summer, we talked about some issues that we had with during the dismantlement of the segment 2 FEU. We had some elevated levels. We never went over the permit limit, but we got uncomfortably close. We were able to learn from what we were doing, and we came up with enhanced dust suppression methodologies in order to control that so we can complete it. And you can see that in the first spike, around May and June of last summer. And then we learned, we took to heart the lesson so that when we deconstructed the segment 3 FEU in March onto April, we had dust much better controls, as you can see from the end of the graph there, that we did not come anywhere near our permit limit. And we really did learn from the previous experience, and I do want to commend especially our contractor for learning lessons and adapting to the site. Next slide, please. And as it's been for the entire project, the arsenic air monitoring data shows very consistent low numbers that have been steady throughout our tenure at the site. Next slide, please. And some of these dust suppression measures, I think it bears repeating. During the last bit of work at segment 3, these measures included, the perimeter air monitoring stations, so 5 stations that surround the site. The FEU itself, is our primary dust suppression measure, and to make sure that the FEU is working correctly. We had a set of negative pressure sensors within it to make sure that we always had negative pressure within the FEU, and we had copious amounts of watering both in the interior of the FEU and around the site to make sure that we were controlling any fugitive dust emissions. Next slide, please. And during the deconstruction of the FEU scaffolding, especially, we enhanced our dust suppression measures. Here you see windscreens, water cannons, and perimeter and mobile water misters that were effective in correcting the FEU, the segment 2 FEU dismantlement, and allowing us to do the segment 3 FEU dismantlement without any issues. Next slide, please. I want to sincerely thank all of our agency partners and vendors. Our agency partners were instrumental in helping us get through this project efficiently. They helped us when problems cropped up so we can try to solve them together. And I'm very grateful for all the help that we got from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, from the California Department of Toxic Substance Control, from South Coast Air Quality Management District, and then from the city of Vernon, who also held some of our permits and were very helpful whenever we had any issues or questions. This project would not have been the success that it's been without our vendors. I want to commend AIS, American Integrated Services, for the great work that they did at the site in getting the work done efficiently and safely. I want to thank NV5, who provided a resident engineer, Eric Frasky, without whom I would not have been able to complete this job. He was instrumental in all phases of the project. And I also want to thank Almega, who was our air monitoring contractor. They always came out, 24/7 service, and always made sure that we were in compliance with the requirements for air monitoring, collecting the samples, and sending them to the lab and making sure that we always had a really good handle of where we stood in terms of our dust emission control. So thank you, everyone. Last slide, please. And so, we're done with our physical labor at the site. We completed what we set out to do in terms of decontamination and deconstruction, but the VERT will still continue to exist. As Amanda said, the VERT does own the property. And so our future VERT activities include various administrative functions, such as paying property taxes, permit fees, insurance payments, and then potentially there might be other tasks that EPA and or DTSC may assign to the VERT. I want to thank you all very much for your participation tonight. I've been very glad to have had the opportunity to work on this very challenging project, which very near to where I grew up as a young man. So thank you for that opportunity. And now let me introduce Rene Bermudez with South Coast AQMD.
Hey, Roberto, and good evening, everyone. I am Rene Bermudez, Atmospheric Measurements Manager here at South Coast AQMD. Unfortunately, Jason Aspel, who's normally here, wasn't able to attend tonight's meeting, and I'll provide his engineering and permitting update in his absence. So South Coast engineering staff processed the Title V permit renewal for the facility, and it was issued on April 26, 22. No comments were received during the public comment period for the permit, and no other South Coast AQMD permitting actions have occurred since the last update. So next, I want to move on to our air monitoring update. And first, and most importantly, South Coast air monitoring staff collected samples during the recent demolitions at Exide, and there were no exceedances of the AQMD 30-day rolling average. So I'm going to take a second to back up and talk about the monitors that we have at Exide. So AQMD has two EPA sites at Exide. The first is ATSF, and it's currently in standby mode and only operated when demolition deconstruction work takes place. The second site that we have is called RERIG, and that operates every 6th day and also operates every day when there's demolition or deconstruction work that's taking place. So during when the north and south stacks were scheduled for demolition, that was on April 4th and 6th, Exide notified us as required by AQMD rules and regulations. They gave us 2-week notice. In preparation for that deconstruction, the monitors that we operate were tested and calibrated and also certified in advance of the work that was performed. So we began monitoring at midnight on the morning of April 1st and continuously monitored through the end of this construction that took place on April 7th. So all of the samples that we collected were valid, and there's no issues with us collecting the samples. Exide, as Roberto alluded to, operates a network of monitors in addition to the monitors that we operate. Their monitors also ran concurrent with our monitors, and all of the sample concentrations from Exide were consistent with the results that we received from the AQMD monitors. So if in the future there's any other demolition or any reason that there's elevated concentrations detected, Exide will notify us right away, and we will immediately begin running those standby sampler again. So I want to remind everybody that they can go to our AQMD website and look under Exide, and all of the data that we have is an Excel spreadsheet that can be easily downloaded if you want to take a look at that. So with that, I want to go ahead and hand it to Jack Chang, our enforcement manager, to provide an update.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jack Chang. I'm the Senior Enforcement Manager in our compliance and enforcement team, which oversaw the Exide cleanup project. So since our last update, our compliance team has issued 3 notices of violations to the VERT. The first violation occurred on October 25th of 2021, and this was a violation due to a drop in negative pressure below the permitted limit inside the enclosure unit. The second violation occurred on November 12th, 2021. It was for failing to conduct real-time PM10 monitoring during the deconstruction and demolition activity of an ancillary building. And then the third violation occurred on February 4th, 2022. And again, it was failing to maintain the negative pressure inside the enclosure unit in accordance with our permit limit. All three violations were issued on November 11th, 2022. My staff did review the dates, the monitoring data on the violation dates, as well as the dates after. They did not detect any elevated levels of lead in their review of those data trends. If you want more information on the violations, they are posted on our website at the community investigations page Rene mentioned. The monitoring data is also there for your review. And that is the end of my update.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Amanda and Sarah from US EPA. Thank you, Bertha Buga from MERT. And thank you, Rene and Jack from South Coast AQMD. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Mehdi Betahar now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I would like to very quickly thank all the speakers from US EPA, from the VERT, and from AQMD. This is not by no means the end of the work. We have made a commitment to continue. As you guys know, we have received a budget of $132 million to complete the closure activities and start working on corrective action at the site. And to do so, we have selected one of our best engineers and technical support person here, Poonam Acharya, to lead the effort on the remaining part of the work that we have to start tackling weeks from now, I believe. So without any delay, let me introduce Poonam Acharya very quick. She is very qualified. She has worked on multiple RCRA sites. She has the experience that we need for this facility, as she has been actually working very closely with US EPA for the last year, a little bit over a year. So without any delay, Poonam, I'll hand it back to you.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and thank you all for participating in our meeting today. I'm very excited. Thank you, Mehdi, for the introduction. I'm very excited to continue working on this project. As you all could see from Roberto's update, most of the phase 1 closure activities have been completed. Since May 1, DTSC is overseeing facilities maintenance activities. DTSC has also received a budget of $132 million for the facility, which will allow DTSC to continue pending closure and corrective action activities. And this will also in turn create jobs in the community. I would also like to thank all the agency partners and our contractors team for their continued cooperation and contribution to this project. Thank you for having me here today, and I will hand over this meeting back to Madiha. Thank you.
Thank you, Poonam and Mehdi, for the update. Alrighty, so now at this time, I would like to invite again our Etag members for the question and comments, and then we will follow it up with our public members for their question and comments. So again, I would like to remind that there are 4 ways that you can make a comment here today. If you are participating on the Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. You will be invited to unmute your audio when it's your turn. If you are on the phone and have called in, you can press *9 to join the phone queue. I will say the last 3 digits of your phone number when it's your turn. You can then press *6 to unmute your line. If you would like to use the Q&A feature, click the tab at the bottom of your screen and type in your comment. Please note, the chat feature will only be available for DTSC informational purposes only. Lastly, if you called into our Spanish line and would like to ask a question, our Spanish interpreter will be available to ask questions for you. I will now start taking the Etag member questions and comments. So I do see Dr. Rania Septi has her hand raised.
Hi, thank you for this set of presentations. I would have liked to ask my question after the first set of presentations, and it would have been timely, but I did not have a chance. because you guys have loaded this meeting with presentations rather than engagement of Etag members. So thank you for those who presented. This is not meant to negate what you've done. I wanted to comment on the issue of workers. There was so many workers who appreciated the opportunity to work on the cleanup of the residential cleanup part of the project. And that's really nice to see that it made a difference in folks' lives. And definitely that is important. So I'd like to know what pathway DTSC has to provide a pathway for people who don't have positive experiences on the job. Where do they go? Clearly, getting on Zoom and in public speaking would jeopardize their work. There's no secret to that. That's known. So what pathway do you have for allowing workers to complain safely? I know this has come up many times before. It will never stop being relevant, even if 1 million people get on the phone and stay. It's been a great experience. So we will still want to know about the not so positive. Please tell us what your pathway is.
Thank you, Doctor. Go ahead, Mehdi.
Thank you, Dr. Sapti. That's a very good question. Look, there are two major pathways. The first one would be obviously the union, and I know that when there were a few issues here and there, the union has been approached and has mediated and resolved those issues. Now, alternatively, I hear what you're saying, and I perfectly understand. Some people are more reluctant to go to the union, and they want to convey their concerns to us. We have at least few people within DTSC who received comments or suggestion or even complaints from workers, and we have acted on them. So I'll give you an instance that we have for the work graduate. We have someone who is assigned, that's Andres Martinez, who is in contact with many, many work graduates. And he's also the bridge with the union. He ensures that if there is a problem, it's brought to us. Similarly, when there is a problem with work or they're running out of work, he does help them. So there are avenues. Although the union is the first line of defense, the first to respond to this, when these requests come to us, we try to respond as quickly as possible.
Okay. It would be nice that that things be shared with us. Just as the positive comments were shared openly with us today, it would be nice if there was ever a reporting of some sort of, of course it'd be anonymous, but there was a comment about this and this is how we resolved it. Some workers have reported this and this is what we've done about it. I'd be very interested in hearing what issues are coming up and how you've resolved them. I think this is information that is relevant to the Etag's knowledge in the scope of our work with you, along your side. So these are my thoughts about this, and I'll look forward to what you will do about that. And I would welcome my Etag fellow members to speak about this if anyone feels the same or not.
Thank you, Dr. Shepti. That is really important to make that comment. It's very important to have different scenarios of feedback just so we can have a well-rounded review of our project. I'm going to go ahead and ask, I see Mark Lopez has his hand raised. You can go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question, Rania, because it does point to an issue, right? I think Mehdi laid out kind of the best intent, but the reality of the experience of folks is far different, right? We've heard it here at these meetings before, and then many more outside of the meetings who are fearful of speaking up, right? I think part of the issue is the cleanup workers are not state employees, right? And so while there is some infrastructure for whistleblowing within public agencies, that doesn't exist for the cleanup workers, right? There's a kind of a layer of the contractor. There's a layer of the union, And so DTSC is kind of outside a lot of those interactions, legally, contractually. And so I think, and definitely invite Pete to chime in here, because Pete has definitely shared a lot and given recommendations for what to, put in future contracts to ensure more protections for workers, more oversight, a safe avenue for communication when issues come up, because the issues that we've been seeing revolve around not following protocols, right? Revolve around potentially putting more community members at risk, and then have seen backlash, right? And a lot of this is not going to be documented. It's experienced by workers who are then marginalized in the workplace or outright fired, right? And so I think that a lot more can be done and should be done to provide more of an infrastructure for workers who are speaking out, because as Juan, was expressing earlier, we want all of the workers to have really positive experiences. And when workers are trying to make a point when a protocol is not being followed, it's not to be difficult. It's not to slow down work. It's to ensure that the work is being done right. And for a lot of us who advocated for local hire, that's exactly why we did it, because we knew that people from our community are going to care that much more, right? If it's your neighbor, if it's your family member, you're going to care that much more that it's being done right. And so I think we've made some efforts to try to build stronger relationships between community and the contractors. And, some of us have expressed that the behavior of the contractors has kind of gone beyond what might be repairable, and have in some cases even advocated for a new contractor in the new contracts. And I definitely want to make sure to express, because I have heard that some workers have been told that, it's really important to keep the current contractor on so that they can stay working. But DTSC has assured us that there won't be a gap in work. If there is a new contractor moving forward, it isn't going to be one day to the next. All right, y'all, no more work, no more houses getting cleaned up until the new contractor comes on. They're committed, and we'll hold them to make sure that there isn't a gap in the work, because we do think that is best. And when it comes to local hire, when it comes to the work participants who have been trained, you all are the priority workforce. And so even if there is a new contractor, as there has been in the past, the workforce remains here, the jobs remain here for you. So we want to make sure to reassure workers that is the case.
Thank you, Mark, for that comment. Go ahead, Mehdi. I see it. You're unmuted.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Mark, you and I have discussed this, and I can say it now and repeat exactly what I said before. We have understood and we have learned lessons from the past. One of the main lessons is making sure that people who have committed to this job, and I'm talking about the 175 workers in the field, retain their positions. So that goes back to the question that Peter has asked earlier about a contract. We want to ensure that the transition between the current contract and the next contract when the solicitation is over is made in a smooth fashion, and we retain this work. It is important, not just because we also care about these workers and their families. That's important to us. But also what's important is we're retaining the talent that has learned and has built a lot of experience on this job. So we don't want to lose that. So yes, we will do whatever it takes. That is going to be our priority. And to the second question of Dr. Sapti, we've had very few instances where people came to us and raised concern. As to how we address them, I can tell you right now, and I can't speak a lot about it. I will explain in a minute. We had 2 cases. We have initiated an investigation with the Department of Justice. So I have no liberty to say anything beyond that because the investigation is ongoing, but we did act on it right away. So while this investigation is ongoing, obviously I cannot share more, but I want you to know and reassure you that in the very few instances where we were contacted, where we needed to do something, we have done something, and we have responded in a timely manner.
Thank you, Maddie, for addressing that and giving your comment. I'm going to now go on to our next person that have their hand raised. Excuse me for pronouncing it wrong, it's Michovsky. You may go ahead and ask or make your comment. Michovsky, are you online? I do see your hand raised. Alrighty, I'll get back to you later. Alrighty, I'm gonna go and move on to Peter Reyes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because Pete, I think, has had it for a while.
Alrighty.
Right, and then is he part of the Etag? Because I thought you said Etag member, so I wasn't sure if you were avoiding my hand or you just were we just focusing on Etag members right now?
Yeah, we were just focused on E-tags, but I just saw Michovsky's name first and then your name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just because I think this is something that it's an Etag meeting, right? Because I feel like it's focusing more on public participation than Etag. I'm not sure if I'm wrong on that. But I feel like, or presentations, but just to continue, because I know we're almost coming to an end. I did want to chime in on what Dr. Rania and Mark was mentioning. And I'm glad that Mehdi knows the number because we had a meeting last week and I asked him how many workforce participants we had, and he did not know, although he says that he oversees this program. But I do want to know, Mehdi, do we know whose scope of work the workforce program falls under right now?
I'm sorry, can you please clarify your question?
Do we know? I said thank you for knowing the number because I know last week we didn't have a number of the workforce participants. You said 175, is that correct?
I said the total number of workers is close to 175 in the field, correct. And when you asked me, I think you were specific about the work graduates.
Right.
I shared with you that the number varies day after day. We have an average of about 72 to 74 work graduates on the program.
Okay, but
we're checking those numbers.
Do we know if there is somebody's scope of work falls under workforce participant under DTSC or title?
I am not quite sure I understand your question. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Is somebody assigned to the workforce program?
Yes. As shared with you, the point of contact would be Andres Martinez.
No. But I'm saying with the title or the scope of work, not somebody that you can call. Because Andres title doesn't say anything regarding workforce participants. Am I wrong on that?
Well, it's kind of interesting that you're raising this. And let me again reiterate.
It's just I don't want to prolong this, but it's just a yes or no.
Yeah, my title is Assistant Deputy Director, and I manage the Exide project. Andres Martinez is a supervisor for the public participation, and he is overseeing and he is in charge of the work.
So it's under his scope of work and it's under but it's not on his title, is what you're saying?
That is correct.
Okay. Because it's to my understanding that there's not a direct person that is in charge of the work participants. And the only reason I bring it up is going back to what Dr. Rania says, that there's a lot of inconsistency, especially with the workforce participants. And I feel like there should be more. If this is something that, if I understand, Meredith and Grant have really praised, a program that's really praised and put in a pedestal, that I think that there should be a direct person overseeing this. Even further, somebody that people can go to, not somebody that, just call Andres. That's just a reference because he was in charge of the program. But I do think that as long as we don't have a third party, there's no reason for you base your information off the contractor. The contractor is the one providing the information. So if there's no third party, if I am a worker for the contractor, I'm not going to want to make the contractor look bad and then this goes for anything, I'm not saying just the work source or anything that's going on. I'm going to try everything possible to make everything look good. My point is that I do think that it's very important to have somebody that is a third party overseeing this and then gives the reports. Because if you're reporting to us or you're telling the contractor to email Dr. Rania the reports, or it's just, there's no third party, it's just a contractor to you and you give us what the contractor gives us basically, or read what they gave us. So I think that's very important to understand that unless that happens, I think it's very hard for me to trust the process that you're saying, even though I do see that there's an attempt being made. But I do think that it's very difficult for if I'm being hired by a contractor to make the contractor look bad or make anything negative that would jeopardize the contract. So I think that's very important. But along with that, I do want to say that I do belong to the 8%, which is a sampling where the budget goes to. And I do want to give credit to EFI and Cheyenne and his staff, because I do think that being here for the 6 years that I've been here, they are very, they just go above and beyond, and they take criticism very well. They're open to talking as opposed to all the other contractors that I've worked with all of them, to be able to stop work or just to be able to have a conversation if something's being done wrong. But I do think that of all the contractors, EFI leads the way, and there's something that you guys should definitely either learn from them or talk to. But Cheyenne and their staff is definitely a great the resource to talk to. Other than that, I don't know if Mark or Dr. Rania want to chime in on that.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. And we agree. EFI is a great team. Cheyenne has been very helpful. He's worked on this project for several years now, and there's always new things that we can all learn, and we do try and work together as a team. I know that we are not perfect, so we know that, you know that, but we are always trying to strive to be a good team and work together for the benefit of this project. So thank you so much. We're listening to you, Peter. We understand what you're saying, and we'll take that information back.
Right. The only other thing I wanted to add is we were having consistent meetings with Grant, I would say on a weekly basis. Now, we met with Medi last week, and it seems like everything was lost. I'm not sure if Grant knew that he was on his way out, but I hope that we can continue, because it was being very progressive with the conversations we had with them. But it seemed that there was inconsistencies when we met with Medi. I still have to haven't received Medi's email. He said he would email us back in regards to what we discussed. So I'm still waiting on that, and I'm still waiting on a response in regards to conflict of interest. So just to put that in the air, but I do think that I hope that everything that we discussed with Grant doesn't just get thrown away.
Yeah, I didn't. Thank you, Pete. I didn't see that first meeting as just the first meeting. Obviously, we do have to continue these conversations, because we will benefit from all points that you're raising, that Mark is raising, and it's important for us. I think Dion said it well. We are far from being perfect, but we really, what we have right now is we're striving to make changes where changes are needed. And working with you will just benefit the program as a whole. So I am available. If Mark and you wants to have other meetings, please let me know. I'll make myself available. That is my commitment to you.
Thank you, Medi. And then also remember, Pete, Grant, unfortunately, he has just left. So Medi is getting into position to help with the areas where Grant has left off. So please have a little grace with us. We're in transition is what I'm trying to say. So, but thank you. And we will get there. We will get there. Mark, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, one of the really beneficial parts of the last conversation we had with Medi was around the new contract. Because something we've seen in the past is when there are fluctuations in the amount of homes being cleaned up, local hire workers, work participants were targeted for being fired disproportionately, right? And so I think one of the things that has been ensured going forward is that there shouldn't be a fluctuation in homes being cleaned up. And so, again, in the past, we've seen contractors use that fluctuation to target workers who speak out, for the first ones to be fired and the last ones to be rehired. And so I think that will go a long way to dealing with that particular issue. But I think there's also issues that have come up that are outside of that. I'm thinking specifically about Stephanie, who has shared in these meetings before. She was kind of reclassified as a worker by a contractor before being fired. And so she no longer was part of the union at that point. And so that seemed kind of deceptive. And then, of course, there's been other workers who have faced intimidation that, of course, impacts their feelings of safety of working. And so I think while there have been some strides, right, it's always important to recognize the places where we are finding the solutions. It is important to recognize that there's still gaps, and that's right. the future conversations that, again, we're hoping Medi will kind of keep up at the pace that we were checking in with Grant. Will hopefully lead to a lot of the solutions we need.
That's great. Thank you so much for that, Mark. Appreciate that. And he will get there. Just have a little grace with us as he transitions. But we appreciate those comments. Medea, do we have any more Etag members that want to? I'm going to let you transition back in.
All right. Thank you, Tian. I do want to take one more person before we move on. So I don't see any more Etag members. So I'm just going to transition into taking questions and comments from our public members. I'll go ahead and do the raise hand feature, and then I'll move on to our Q&A. So I see someone named S. If you can go ahead and please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Dillard. I recently came on here, and I just want to tell you guys, during this whole experience, I loved working with you guys. I loved everything about it, except for the fact of being at the company. They do target people. They target them, and they press you. And then once they target you, they try to bring in their own people. And my whole thing was, with the union wise, I was reporting to the union and stuff about how I was being attacked, and the union didn't do anything for me. And before I could even get to a further discussion about stuff, it was like they right away, they reclassified me, like Mark was saying, and they put me into to work with a different company and stuff. And it's an ongoing, it hasn't changed in regards to the way they're treating the participants, myself included. I've been out of work for already since September of last year. And the reason why I was fired is because they hired a new supervisor, and I was just trying to help him in regards to how the plastic was not fully covering I guess where they were using the big bobcats and stuff, and they were using it on the public property and stuff. So all the stuff was contaminating, and I tried to try to help the supervisor because I had a little more schooling in this. And that's the one thing that I keep bringing up. We have a lot more education in these fields than some people do. And when that happens, they feel intimidated by it, and they directly try to I guess it's like they feel like they're like, if we're being bossy, or if we know, I don't know what it is. But after that, I ended up getting fired and stuff for trying to help one of my coworkers. And then what happened is, once a community member gets fired, they bring in their own family members, or they bring in their workers or their people, which has been happening and going on for a while already. And the whole company from NEC, it used to be all community workers, but now it's all people from, I'm not sure, from Cal Poly. I think that's the school, and they just keep bringing in their, I guess, their classmates, their family members and stuff. And it's just not right that they keep on pushing out community members. And I just want to let all the community members know that there's other stuff that's going on. And you guys have been doing such an amazing job. For all my crews I had, I'm so proud of you guys. And believe me, like, it's going to keep going. You guys are not going to stop working. Don't worry about stop working. This is going to be continuing, and they're going to help us, and they're going to keep us going. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm glad that you shared your experience. I understand as we also celebrate our success on the project, we want to, reflect all the aspects of this project, and we want to know what your experience is. So I appreciate that you shared that. That's really important for you too. So would anyone like to add any comments or any additional things to that before I move on to our Q&A?
You can go ahead and move on to the Q&A.
Thank you, Dion. So I don't see anyone on the Zoom phone line, so that's why I'm going to go on to our Q&A. So the first answer that I see is from Ivana Martinez. She states that, so properties that are slightly less contaminated, yet still contaminated, are not even being considered for cleanup. I can go ahead and answer that. It is the follow-up to our PIA. So we are cleaning properties within the PIA. You can go to our website to know the threshold of parts per million that we're cleaning up. Before I go on to the next question, would anyone like to address that question?
Yeah, thank you, Medea. That needed a clarification. Currently, we are cleaning up every property that has a concentration of 200 parts per million or above. We are budgeted to keep up with this work. The list is long. We have identified about 2,700 homes that fall in that list. And we are actually working really, really hard to be on schedule. That's what Stephen Hariri has shown earlier. We're slightly ahead of schedule, and we want to keep it up. At this pace, our objective is to reach our next goal of 5,940 property by March of 2025.
Perfect. Thank you, Mehdi, for addressing that. I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next Q&A question. What is meant by construction activities at the former Exide site, referring to what Poonam recently presented?
Thank you, Medea. So currently, as you have seen in the presentation, the three main segments in the operational building are down. The next step is we still have some buildings to be demolished, and we are right now scoping that work. Again, going back with the same logic that I explained on the residential, we want to ensure that the work continues and that we're on schedule for the facility. So there will be, next step will be an additional investigation that's part of the delineation of impact on site. We are going to remove some of the foundations of the buildings are existing, and then we have to select the remedy, and then we can proceed with the implementation of the remedy. Now, these are many, many steps. I have shortened the steps, but these are many steps that will require us, and we're going to be happy to share that information publicly, and we're going to have some public input as well. Like the selection of remedy is going to be done in concert with the public. So we have many steps ahead of us, but ultimately what we would like to do is make sure we have a site fully delineated, fully remediated, and same for groundwater. That's going to be a little bit of a longer term, but we do also intend to start working on groundwater at the earliest.
Thank you, Mehdi, for that. Before I move on, I would like to ask my Spanish audio bridge line to see if there is any questions there. Madeline or Teresa, are there any questions on the Spanish line?
No questions in the Spanish call line.
Alrighty, thank you. That does conclude our question and comments. And now, if you can go on to the next slide, thank you for that. So this concludes our presentations for the Exide Technology Advisory Group public meeting. I would now like to invite Dr. Williams, and our co-chair, Mark, for their closing remarks. Dr. Williams?
Mark, would you like to go ahead?
No, go for it first. I got to pull up a link.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending. Again, it's always heartening to see how many people are willing to go late, go into the evening after a long day of work to understand how the project is going and to advise us and to participate on these discussions. Clearly, the theme for the day was workers and how important workers are to this project. I want to thank Dr. Sapti for focusing on worker safety. I look forward to the results of the analysis for any trends in the data that have been provided and to the work that she will do with the DTSC team to make sure that we understand anything we can glean from those data. I want to thank all the workers who spoke today and shared their experiences, both the good experiences and the ones that are more problematic. And I want to close by just extending my personal thanks and thoughts to Michael Aceves. I want to keep saying to say Aceves as he recovers from his injury. I do hope for the best for him, and we'll keep his family in our thoughts. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mark, for closing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Meredith. Definitely share the sentiments. Yeah, again, just always thank you to everybody who shows up, everybody who contributes, whether it's praising or it's pushing. All of it is warranted and all of it is needed. And it has been this whole time. So definitely appreciate that. I think, some folks, and I'll include Grant in that, I think had gotten used to that and to some extent had grown in their ability to engage with that. And so I'm definitely looking at new staff that have transitioned in and seeing, some of that already, but also, hoping that you all continue to grow with us in this process because it is hard. It is long. And for those of us that have been in it for a long time, right, we see the transition and we keep going. And so we want to keep going with you. Yeah. So, and as I mentioned earlier, and I wanted to reshare it because I know a lot of folks couldn't get into the meeting earlier. ECR, Communities for Environmental Justice, USC and Occidental College are currently engaging in testing soil from homes outside the current Exide cleanup area to try to see how far the lead contamination goes, while also testing homes that have already been cleaned up, just addressing concerns of homes getting recontaminated because of the patchwork approach, because of some of the construction that's happened in communities at sites and regrading. So I'm sharing that now in the link. I'm sharing the link now in the chat for the USC website for that. And then that's also available in Spanish. You can change the language on the website. And then we'll also share the Instagram post that ECR put up recently that explains some of that as well. So please take a look at that. Please share that. If you live within 5 miles of Exide, please reach out to us. And then, of course, if your home has already been cleaned up, please reach out to us. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams, and thank you so much, Mark Lopez, for your closing remarks. Alrighty, thank you all for taking the time to participate and share this collaborative space this evening. On behalf of our DTSC team, I would like to especially thank all of our presenters for their presentations and our Spanish interpreter for her interpretation services. Thank you all for joining us here today. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.